Welcome everyone to the Memories of Gordon Lightfoot Stories and Music. This is a key feature of the Lightfoot Days Festival. We wanted to hold this event in celebration of Gordon and his memory and to have people enjoy it without having to pay a fee, because this is something that Aurelia holds dear to our hearts. Thank you. Early on in the planning of this event, we wanted to ensure that it was free and a chance for the citizens of Gordon's hometown to hear about his lifetimes and his music. We're very grateful to all the storytellers and musicians who are with us tonight to celebrate Gordon Lightfoot. The Lightfoot Days Festival was reimagined in 2023, led by Karen Hilfen-Milson. Karen passed away in 2024. But she left a legacy for the members of the committee who hosted the first pop-up festival in 2023. And we are carrying on her work and her image and her imagination in the celebration of the life, times, and music of Gordon Lightfoot. Over the past year, 5 board members have produced and will now and are in the process of delivering a 4-day festival. And I would like everyone to give a round of applause to the Lightfoot Days Festival members. And I'd like to announce them. President John Winchester at the back. Treasurer Brian Hare. Secretary Mary Hoykus. And Board Director Steve Porter. And myself, Daphne Mainprize, as Vice President. Whoa, thank you. Oh, I feel grateful, thank you. And we are grateful to all our supporters, and in particular to our sponsors. We're a very small festival on a very modest budget. And it has been because the community has come together and believes in what we believe in, which is make sure that the spirit of Gordon Lightfoot in his hometown, Aurelia, thrives and survives for decades to come. So I would like to take a moment to recognize the sponsors and promotional partners, and a couple of other important sponsors as well. First, our title sponsor this year is Tim Corney, RBC Wealth Management, and Tim will be up to bring greetings in a few minutes. But thank you so much, Tim, and Ruth Tan, his assistant, for helping us. And Tyler Knight and his team from Night Vision Creative Agency videotaped the workshops this afternoon and are videotaping the proceeds this evening. So thank you so much, Tyler. Carol and Roy Tim Photography are here tonight, and they're going to be, I'm sure they've already been around the room taking pictures. Please make sure that if you want pictures with special people, they'll be around to take pictures. And I think Roy is right there. Roy. Okay, and Carol's over there. And Wags Uniform Services, which is the company that Gordon's family were involved with in Aurelia for many years, have also sponsored today. Adam Chambers, the MP for Simcoe North, Apple Annie's Cafe, Best Western Mariposa Inn, Brewery Bay Food Company, Champlain Waterfront Hotel, Creative Nomads. Thank you, Anita and Steph and all the staff. This is an amazing facility, and the acoustics are amazing, and the staff, they've been so grateful and helpful, and we're so appreciative. Thank you so much. Fairfield Inn and Suites, Mariposa Market, North Simcoe Art. MJ Pollock is here representing that group today, and we'd like to alert you to the paintings on the wall here, which we'll try to have lit up better at intermission, that were prepared by local artists commemorating Gordon and focusing on some of his pieces of music. And Aurelia First Aid and the Aurelia Opera House. Last night we had the most amazing performance by the Lightfoot Band. The crowd were cheering. It was wonderful, and more to come, more to come. And Streets Alive. Our promotional partners, Muskoka 411, Aurelia Matters, Sun Online, Aurelia and Lake Country Tourism, and CTV Barrie. I would also like to recognize the hard work of a few people that work behind the scenes in support of our small board, and that's Diane Porter, Janice Winchester, and and Mark Webster Production, who has been phenomenal, flying, on foot, just trying to keep up with all the things that we're trying to create and present here today. Impression House, and also Nicholas Jennings, who's back at the back with his biography of Gordon Lightfoot for sale. Also, the art on display, I've already told you that. I can move on. Now it is my deep pleasure to introduce our Master of Ceremonies for the memories of Gordon Lightfoot, stories, and music, Linda Leatherdale. So let me just... about Linda. I'm sorry, but it's going to be a couple of minutes, but not long, but I think it's important because she has had a stellar career. Linda Leatherdale, an award-winning financial journalist and personal finance expert, is known as the great defender of the Main Street. Her advocacy has led to new legislation for fair taxes, balanced budgets, consumer protection, and the dream of home ownership, earning her the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal and numerous other awards. Formerly the financial editor of the Toronto, Ottawa, and Edmonton Sun, Linda's hard-hitting commentaries garnered a loyal readership across both in Canada and internationally. In 2009, she joined Cambria as vice president and now serves as VP of Public Affairs and Business Development. She's a sought-after commentator on business, politics, consumer, and personal financial issues, with her Luxury Living with Linda Leatherdale articles published in the Toronto Sun. Additionally, she regularly appears on the Roy Green Show across Canada. Recently, Linda received a Brilliant Mind Woman Award along with her idol, former Mississauga Mayor Hazel McCallum. She previously hosted the popular Moneyline TV show on Rogers and Linda's Money show on Global and Prime networks, and serves as a financial anchor on CTV's Breakfast Television and Global TV's Morning Show. She's also the author of The Money is a Girl's Best Friend. I like that concept a lot, Linda. We need to talk. Her journalism career began in her hometown of Aurelia, Ontario, as a reporter for the Daily Packet and Times, and she has contributed to various publications, including Financial Post magazine, the Globe and Mail Report on Business, and Modern Women's Magazine. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Linda Leatherdale, a friend of many years.
Wow, Daphne, that was a long introduction and a lot to say, but I just want to first off say thank you, John Winchester, thank you, Daphne, and the organizers. This is such an honor, and I've spoken to crowds of thousands, and I'm nervous tonight because I want to do this justice. Don't we all love Gordon Lightfoot? Now, before I tell a few of my own little stories and memories, I want to invite our wonderful mayor of Aurelia to come up. And you know what? I'm so old, I knew his parents. Never mind. When I worked at the Packet and Times as a young reporter. But anyway, welcome, Don McIsaac.
Thank you, Linda. Linda and I go way back. I knew my parents too. just saying. So on behalf of the City of Aurelia and Council, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to be here tonight to celebrate the memories of Gordon Lightfoot. Gordon Lightfoot was more than just a musician. He was a storyteller who captured the spirit of Canada and his people in his lyrics. His songs, such as The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald and, if you could read my mind, have become anthems of our country, evoking memories and emotions that are uniquely Canadian. But it wasn't just the music that made Gordon Lightfoot a legend. He was a humble, gracious, and kind man who never forgot his roots. He loved Orillia, and Orillia loved him back. As we reflect on Gordon Lightfoot's legacy, let us remember the impact he had on our lives and our culture. He was a true Canadian icon, and his music will continue to inspire future generations of musicians and music lovers for years to come. Thank you, Megwich, and merci.
Thank you. And I also would like to invite to the podium Tim Corney, RBC Wealth, and thanks for the food and thanks for the support.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tim Corney. I run a wealth management practice here in Orillia with RBC Dominion Securities. And I'm also a huge Lightfoot fan. And my dad was an enormous Lightfoot fan. And we spent our summers cruising the Trent Severn and Couchiching Lake. And I have fond memories of, the C at G strum of Summerside Dream. And so anyway, when you're in my line of work, it's important to give back to the community. And when we found out that the Lightfoot Days was going on, my wife and I reached out to John and Daphne and said, how could we help? And it turned out they needed a keynote sponsor. So we just thought, what a beautiful way to give back to the community, but also do it in a way where we're celebrating and remembering Gordon Lightfoot, who I said to John when we first met, in my opinion, is actually an underrated Canadian icon. So that's all I wanted to say, and I hope everybody has a great evening.
I just want to take a few minutes just to sort of share some of mine memories. And I got to tell you, I know Steve Eyers is here. I got to tell you this story. I think I first met Gordon Lightfoot when I was babysitting for his older sister, Bev. And they moved me to the Lightfoot homestead on Harvey Street, and I think I was like 16 or something. Anyway, I'm trying to sneak my boyfriend, and I think some of you know him, Bill Calverley, into the house. But I hear a ruckus, and I go, Bill, I don't know what the hell that is, so let me check it out. Well, it was Gordon Lightfoot and Wanda Hawkins, and I said, goodbye, Bill. No, nothing happened. I went home. But anyway, I was young. But later, and I want to give a shout out to Ronnie Hawkins, and his wife is here, Wanda, with us tonight. But thanks to Ronnie, who I call my wizard, who was also, they were godparents to my daughter, Sky, 3-time cancer survivor. Robin wrote Sky Blue. We did fundraising. But I got to meet Gordon again, and I got to meet his beautiful wife, Kim. And I got to spend time. And I would say to him, Gordon, you know me? And he goes, no, you're the finance lady. I said, oh yeah, Toronto Sun, television. But no, I'm a little girl from Orillia. You are? Yes. And I said, babysat for your sister. And then he goes, oh, I remember, Leatherdale Tire, that's your grandfather. I said, yeah. He goes, your Uncle Toe could change a tire faster than anybody. And he said, and then he said, and I remember Bruce Leatherdale, your father. I bought a boat from him. Anyway, the last time I saw Gordon, he was playing in Mississauga. And literally, I wore this outfit tonight because that's what I had on. And thanks to Kim, I got to go to the green room after and talk to him. And just in my walking out, he goes, Linda. And I said, what? Looking good. I said, yeah, wow, what more can you get from an icon like Gordon Lightfoot? Anyway, it's not all about me, it's all about him. And I want to say that Nicholas Jennings is here. I didn't know this. I don't know if you guys saw it. Zoomer magazine. Brian Adams is a photographer, did all the photography of Gordon. And I'm reading the byline. I said, I'm introducing that guy. So he's here tonight with his books. He's the official biographer for Gordon. And so please go and check out his books. I know I'm going to be buying a couple for sure. Anyway, we got to move on. We got to go into, so let's get this show on the road. If you can hear me, show on the road. And first up, and I got to say, this guy's close to my heart, John Swartz, because we worked at the Packet and Times together. So, John, come on up and share some memories.
I'm not doing that for me. I'm doing that for these people in the front row with the reflection off the lights. I want to start by saying the committee has done an excellent job. This festival is twice as big as last year. They took the idea for this night that I gave to them and made it even more than I imagined it could be. And they've got more venues, and congratulations, folks. You did a really good job. And I'm really honored to be the leadoff hitter for tonight. You have to endure what I have to say before we get to the fun part of the program. But I want to tell you the story about the day that I met Gordon Lightfoot. And it was July 8th, 2000. The Mariposa Folk Festival had returned home. The organizers were hoping it was going to be a success. They were hoping having Gordon as the festival headliner was going to sell tickets to help make it a success. And here we are 25 years later, minus a couple of years off because of the pandemic, and they're still here, which is a testament to Gord's vision to come back and help out the people that were putting on this festival. So, I've interviewed, by that time, lots of famous musicians and entertainers and the odd well-known politician along the way. So speaking to somebody who's famous was not a new subject with me. I had a story of an interview I did with Ed Asner that got published in almost every major newspaper around the world because CP, Canadian Press, and American Press picked it up. So this is not new territory. But for some reason, I was so nervous about even contacting Gord to get the interview. And usually you call a manager, you call a booking agent, an agent, promoter, you tell them what you're doing, where it's going to be published, and they hook you up and that's it. You call, you make the interview, and we're on our way. I couldn't even make the call to the middle person. So I went to Pete McGarvey, who is an institution in this town when he was alive. And he was the former news director at CKEY in Toronto. And he had interviewed, his list of people that he interviewed, which he kept a record of, and I saw it, included everybody you could think of. They're in that book. And he interviewed Gordon many times, and they were close friends. And I said, Pete, what do we say? How do I get this interview? And he says, call Gord's office. You're going to talk to Ann Liebold. And tell her what you're doing, and it's going to be in the Packet and Times. That'll help a lot. And you tell her that Pete said Gord will want to speak with you. So I did that and got the gig. So here we are. It's getting dark, and I'm walking up to the trailer. And if you've been to festivals, you've seen the motorhomes, the highway coaches converted into tour buses, all stacked up behind the stage, serving as dressing rooms and lounges for the entertainers. This is 2000. You know those campers, the little aerodynamic curve at the front that go to the back and you hitch it up to the back of the car and away you go? That's what they had for dressing rooms at the Mariposa Folk Festival. And I looked up just to make sure that I was using the right terminology, and Jayco still makes them, but now they call them the mini camper. And I looked at the specs. They're only 20 feet long, but it says sleeps 8. And I'm thinking, where the hell are you putting 8 people in that? Unless you're counting the space on the roof. So I come up to the door, and you've all heard lately, I'm 6'3", 235 pounds. Well, Barry Harvey was Gord's road manager, and he had to be at least 6'3" and 235, and he looked nothing like the orangutan. He looked exactly like the guardian at the gate should look like, big and imposing. I introduced myself. I said, why I was there? And he says, yeah, I know, I'm expecting you. And he put his hand on the handle of the door and started opening it, and he turned back to me, he says, 15 minutes, in that tone of voice. He opened the door, and I walked in, and there's Gord. And what happened next was beyond anything I could have imagined was going to happen. And I wish I'd coordinated with Andy to come up and do his impression of Gord, because it's bang on. And Gord's standing there, and he put his hand out. John, so glad to meet you. Glad you could make it. Come on in, have a seat. You want a coffee? And he took a pack of cigarettes out of his pocket, put it on the table. He says, you want to smoke? You know when you go to somebody's house for the first time, or you're visiting a relative you haven't seen in 20 years, and they're trying to be, they're over-dramatic and trying to be a good host? If Gord had an apron on, he'd be like, do you want coffee? Can I get you a smoke? Not what I expected at all. And I said, Mr. Lightfoot, I'd like to get the interview done. Thank you very much. But Barry Harvey is on the other side of that door, and I'm going through that door 15 minutes from now. So we need to do this interview. And he laughed, and he said, call me Gord. I can't remember the next 14 minutes. I recorded it. I have all kinds of voice recordings from interviews I did in 2000, but not that one. You know, when something catastrophic happens, a car accident, the cat falls off the top shelf or something like that, and time slows right down, and all the surrounding sound just goes, and it's dead silent, and you're like in the Twilight Zone. That's what that 14 minutes was like for me, and probably why I can't remember much of what was said, although I have the impression of how Gord acted. And his 14 minutes came up, and I had taken my watch off. You know, I got an easy undo strap and everything. I put it on the table so I could see the face of it just by glancing down. And 14 minutes came up, grabbed my pen, my notebook, my recorder, and I said, thank you very much, Gord. I really appreciate it. I really hope that we can do this again. And he said, anytime, John. You don't say that to a journalist. Because I think I spoke to Gord more than any other television or news journalist in the next 23 years. And there's been a few little milestones along the way. Maybe I'll get to tell you someday, maybe about the day that Gord died and my role in killing that story on editors' desks all across the country. But he was so gracious. And so it was like he was trying hard to be normal. And I think my success came from dealing with people like him in having normal conversations, instead of asking the standard 6 or 7 questions that every entertainment journalist asks. I never did that in my entire career. And something happened there. And it was the beginning of a 23-year friendship. I gained confidence. If I could speak with Gord and manage to survive for 14 minutes, I could speak with anybody, including you people. And it raised my profile in the community with my readers, the 2 or 3 of them that there are, and the people whose television sets still work, who used to watch me on television. And I'll be forever grateful for that. And I turned, and I opened the door, and I went through, and as I was going through the door, I put my arm up like this, face of the watch to Barry, and I said, 15 minutes. And I walked out. Thank you.
That was a great story, John. And also, I just want to say he's produced documentaries on him. You've done quite a bit, so way to go. Now, next up is somebody I babysat, Steve Ayers, and his mother was Bev, and Bev actually managed Gordon for some time. Anyway, he's got so many stories to tell. Can you imagine? And what was it like to hear his uncle singing on the radio? And, you know, he himself is a musician, as you know, with Steve McEwen, and they have Stephen and opened for Gordon. I can't read this too well. Steve was born here. He went to Park Street Collegiate and he studied law, pre-law at University of Toronto. And it was in 1978 that him and his longtime friend Steve McEwen moved to Calgary and they began their musical careers as the duo, as I said, Even Stevens. So come on up, Steve Ayers. You've got some great stories to tell us. Do I get to hug the guy I babysat? Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Before we get started, I want to show you my T-shirt. Gord signed it about 3 years ago, and I'll cherish it. I haven't washed it. Well, my wife hand washed it for me, so that's very special. As I look around the room here this evening, I think it's a safe bet to say that I met Gord before anyone else here. My name's Steve Ayers, and I'm Gord's nephew. My mom, Bev, and Gord were brother and sister. And I was born and raised here in Orillia, and I've been a professional musician for 47 years. I play in the duo with my partner, Steve McEwen. We're called Even Steven. And I also play in a tribute band. I play bass in a tribute band called Classic Lightfoot Live. Now, I was honored to be asked by the committee to speak this evening and share some stories. I thought, I could go on all night. But I have 3 stories that I will get to in a moment that I think you will find amusing. Now, I have fond memories of Gord frequently showing up here in Orillia, guitar in hand, to visit his mom and dad, Jesse and Gord Sr., my grandparents. It was always an exciting event. He'd play bits and pieces of songs that he was working on, and we were in awe. It's an understatement to say that Gord shaped my musical direction in life. I was privileged at a very young age to have a front row seat to watching Gord's career take off in the 60s. Case in point, story number 1. So it's the mid-60s, and Gord has just released his debut album, Lightfoot ! With all those great songs on it. And I was around 10 years of age, and one afternoon I was at my grandparents' house. I was in the kitchen talking to my grandma Jessie, and my grandfather had a little workshop set up down in the basement, and he was always down there. He was a bit of a handyman. He loved to tinker. He painted, he fixed things, he built things. And so this one afternoon, he was down in the basement. I'm talking to Grandma Jessie, and all of a sudden we hear, "Jessie, Steve, get down here, quick! Jessie, Steve, come down, quick!" And so fearing the worst, we raced down the stairs thinking, he's fallen or he's cut a finger off with a power tool. And my grandfather's standing in front of the radio, and he's got this big smile on his face, and he had the radio turned to a country music station called CFGM. And the song that he was listening to was Marty Robbins singing his cover version of Ribbon of Darkness. And my grandfather, I'd never forget this, he's going, "Gordy's on his way, Gordy's on his way." He was so happy. And here's this Nashville country music superstar, Marty Robbins, singing a song written by a fellow from little old Orillia, Ontario, Canada. I'd never seen my grandfather so happy. And I looked at my grandmother, and she had tears coming down her cheeks. And I said, "Grandma, what's wrong? Why are you so sad? Why are you crying?" And she said, "Stevie, these are tears of joy. Someday you'll understand." Story number 2, let's fast forward about 10 years or so. So it's the mid-'70s, Gord's at the height. And at the time, I was going to U of T. And my mom was managing Gord's office on Davenport Road, early morning productions. And I used to hang out there a lot. So one day I come into the office, and Gord's sitting there talking to my mom, and they're talking business. And I walk in, and Gord looks at me. He says, "Hey, Steve, what's up? What are you up to?" I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, Gord, I've saved some money, and I'm on my way to Long and McQuaid to buy myself an acoustic guitar. I'm wondering what you would recommend, what brand you would recommend I buy." And he says, "Well, how much money have you saved?" I said, "Well, I've got about $500. I figure that'll buy something pretty decent." And he's thinking, his wheels are spinning. He says, "Tell you what, go up the second floor. There's a guitar leaned up against the wall. Go get it. Bring it down." So I did. I hand it to him. He strums a bit, hands it to me. I strum a bit. He says, "You know what kind of guitar this is?" I said, "Yeah, that's a Martin." He says, "Do you know what model it is?" I said, "Well, judging by all the pretty mother of pearl inlay around the edges, it's probably a pretty expensive one." He says, "Yep, it's an expensive one. It's the best one they make. It's top of the line. As a matter of fact, it's a 1972. And that particular year, the Martin factory in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, only made 92 of these." So he strums it a bit more, and he's thinking. He says, "Steve, I'll make you a deal." He says, "Promise me you'll look after this guitar, treat it with tender, loving care, and play it, and you can have it." I said, "Pardon me?" He said, "Yeah, that's right. Consider it a gift. Save your money. You can have the guitar." And my jaw hit the floor. I was speechless. Still have the guitar, cherish it. Just another example of Gord's generosity. Story number 3, and I call this my sundown story, and it's got 2 parts. So 1973, it's the fall of 73, I was in my final year of high school here in Aurelia, and I get a call one night from my grandma Jessie. She says, "Steve, your Uncle Gord's here at the house. He's working on a new album. He's got the demo tapes. He wants you to come over and have a listen." So I go over, and Gord's sitting in the living room. He's got this big reel tape recorder. And he tells us that it's almost finished. The album's almost finished. He's really happy with it. He's going to play it for us, and he's going to explain. He's got to add a few things, a few guitars, a couple harmony vocals, a bit of percussion, and whatnot. He says, "I'll explain as we go." So presses start. Of course, we've got Somewhere USA, High and Dry, Seven Island Suite, Circle of Steel, Is There Anyone Home, The Watchman's Gone, Sundown, Carefree Highway, The List, Too Late for Praying, the whole album. So he gets to the song Sundown, and he says, "I got a really good feeling about this one." And he says, "I got to add another vocal harmony." So he plays it, and he's singing the harmony line to the tracks. And he gets to the end of the song, and Grandma Jessie says, "Gord, stop the tape. Rewind it." So he rewinds it. She plays it again. Gets to the end of the song. She says, "Gordy, stop the tape again." And she points her finger at him, and she had a really good ear. She said, "Gordy, that's going to be a #1 hit." Sure enough, the album gets released, Sundown album gets released 3 months later, and we all know what happened after that. The song went to #1. We were mesmerized as he was playing this. Anyway, let's move on. Fast forward about 5 years, my Sundown Story Part 2. And my partner Steve's going to like this one. So we are, Steve and I are out in Calgary, and we're trying to kickstart our musical career. And we get an agent, and he calls us up and he says, fellas, I got you a gig. It's up in Innisfail, Alberta. And it's at the Innisfail Hotel and Tavern. It's a 6-nighter with a matinee on Saturday. X number of dollars, I don't remember how much. Half price on meals and 2 rooms. And we were happy. We finally got a gig. So away we go. We're heading to Innisfail, Alberta. Now, it's the middle of January. It's 1,000,000 degrees below zero. And we are naive. We're very nervous. And we get to this tavern, typical beer tavern, you know, that smell of stale beer and cigarettes. The bar is packed. I mean, there's nothing to do in Innisfail, a town of 7,000 people on a Monday night. You go to the bar and drink. The bar is packed. I said, Steve, we may have a bit of a problem. We've only got about 25 songs that we know well enough to get, and that's not enough to get through the night. So we're going to have to do repeats. So I think in the 4th set, we'll just do the repeats, and by then the patrons will be drunk, none the wiser. So that's great. So we do Sundown in the first set. Take a break. And there's this young guy over at the shuffleboard table. He calls us over. So we go over and we talk. There's this young fella, very precocious, friendly. He looked to be about 12 years old. He says, hi, I'm Danny. Now, do you remember the poster guy from the Mad Comics, Alfred E. Newman? Do you remember that guy? Well, this Danny kid, he looked exactly like that. He had flaming red hair, freckles, his ears stuck out, and he was missing a front tooth. He says, hey guys, you played that song, Sundown, in the first set. I love that song. If you play it again, I'll buy you a beer. Oh, okay, so up we go, second set. Play Sundown, up comes a beer. Okay, second night, Tuesday night. There's Danny over at the shuffleboard table. Hey guys, you gonna play my favorite song for me? Yep, no problem. So we get talking to him. So Danny, what's your story? Tell us about you. And he says, well, I'm a drywaller. I'm getting my life back in order. I just spent a month in jail. What? Yeah, I did time. I held up a 7-Eleven store with a butter knife. But I'm getting my shit together. I said, okay, well, but play that song Sundown. So we did. Wednesday night, he's there again. And jokingly, we started calling him the Sundown Kid. So Thursday night, he's there. Friday night, he's there. Saturday night, he's there. By this time, we've played Sundown God knows how many times. And young Danny, he was getting pretty proud of himself, and he got strutting around the bar. I'm the Sundown Kid. I'm the Sundown Kid. And he loved the attention, right? So Saturday night, the bar manager comes up and says, hey guys, you're going over pretty well with the patrons. I'd like to hold you over for another week. We said, okay, that's great. So he puts the sign up on the hotel, out on the marquee, and at the time we were called McEwen and Eyers, and I'll digress a bit. We were McEwen and Eyers, held over one more week. And about a month after that, Gord called us in Calgary, and he said, well, I hear you guys are getting some gigs. Yeah? He says, what do you call yourself? McEwen and Eyers. He says, that's not very good. You need something that'll catchier. 2 Steves, why don't you call yourselves even Steven? So, great idea. Thanks, Gord. Anyway, so back to the second week at the Innisfail Tavern. We do the gig. Danny's there every single night. By Saturday night, we'd played Sundown about 50 times. I was getting sick of it. And we played it so much that I felt like I wrote the damn song myself. Anyway, that's the Sundown Story, and I just want to say in closing, thank you for all being here, and thank you for listening. And I want to say thanks to Gord for enriching our lives with all the great music. Thank you. And maybe we'll see you down the street at the Coochie Craft Brewery. We'll be down there about 9 o'clock tonight playing some Lightfoot tunes. So.
Story. Can everybody hear me on this mic? Yep. Okay, good. Now, his other half, Steve McEwen, he's going to come up and share some stories as well and memories. And he's a respected, focused documentary producer for Rogers TV, and he's, well, successful in so many ways. I think Steve has certainly outlined some of their journeys as musicians. So please welcome Steve McEwen, even Stephen.
Thank you very much. It really is an honor to be here tonight. And it is also an honor, I must say this, I've been with this guy. We grew up together. We were in kindergarten together, if you can believe that. And we started making music when we were in grade 4 or 5, and we'd rush home to his mom and dad's place on Mary Street, and play monkey tunes for the kids coming home from school. Beatles and the odd monkey tune.
Some Gord tunes.
And some Gord tunes. But I've been with this guy for a long time, and he's my best friend. He's my brother. I love him, and I just want to say that to him right now. Thank you. This song that I wrote, Steve and I, the year was 1997. And we were in Woodstock, Ontario, playing a place called the Woodstock Inn. And we were there for the whole week, so you have lots of time on your hands. So we rehearsed, we wrote tunes, and I was sitting in the hotel room, and that's the way the song starts, by the way. And I had no inspiration whatsoever until the chambermaid knocked on the door, and the story was born. And I won't explain the story because the story is in the song. I just want to add, too, that it was a thrill for me and Steve. Gord got a hold of it because we had put it on an album, this particular song. And it was such a thrill to know that he would record a tune that I actually wrote, my God. And then it was so surreal. We were down in Massey Hall shortly thereafter, and Steve had said, I think Gordy's going to play your tune. And he did. And he singled me out, and he played the tune. It was surreal. I mean, can you imagine an icon like him? I'm sitting there going, wow, I can't believe this. So the band played the tune, and afterwards got a great reception from the audience. And this guy in front of me turned around and said, good tune, fella, good tune. It was Neil Young's brother, Bob. Remember that? Anyway, without further ado, let's try to get through this. It's called I used
Remember
to
the
be,
word?
I used to be a country singer. Okay, I can't see from the lights here.
Can't see for the lights.
3, 4.
I was sitting in my hotel room, strumming my old guitar. Not much to do when you're far away, playing some smoky bar. I was feeling a little empty and feeling a little blue when the maid came in and asked me if she could do my room. I put down my old guitar and she gave me a smile. She had a crusty voice and a drinker's look, but she had a friendly style. She dusted my room and made my bed, and she talked of days gone by. She spoke of when she wooed the men, a tear came to her eye. She said, I used to be a country singer. I could sing a mean Patsy Cline. My husband, he could yodel like Wilf Carter. He Kitty Wells was a real good friend of mine. She told me that her husband died and son was overseas. I could tell by her eyes and her broken smile she was lonely just like me. She asked me if I'd listened to a tape when she was young. She said, I can't sing now, I forget the words and my voice is almost gone. She said, I used to be a country singer. I could sing a mean Patsy Cline. My husband, he could yodel like Will Carter. Kitty Wells was a real good friend of mine. Well, I cried inside, but I couldn't tell if it was for her or me. So I grabbed my axe and we sang a song in two-part harmony. Since that day when I'm feeling down and I can't find a happy tune, I just think of that maid and the feeling she gave when she came to clean my room. She said, I used to be a country singer. I could sing a mean Patsy Cline. My husband, he could yodel like Wolf Carter. Kitty Wells was a real good friend of mine. I used to be a country singer. I could sing a mean Patsy Cline. My husband, he could yodel like Wolf Carter. Kitty Wells was a real good friend of mine. Kitty Wells was a real good friend of mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where is that chambermaid now? I want to just add one more quick story. I've known Gordy for a long time, too, because of this guy, of course. But one time there was a beer fest here in Aurelia, and I got hit by a full bottle of beer. It smashed my teeth, my nose, broke my nose. And it was a big to-do, but the Ontario Compensation Injury Board paid for it. But Gordy found out about this. And we were living in Calgary at the time. So he sends out all this money to fix my dental bill, to pay for my dental bill. That's the kind of guy he was. I ended up, it was already paid for, Gordy, so I bought him a Martin guitar instead. So thank you, Gordy.
You guys are amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, even Stephen. Love you guys. And we're all from Aurelia. I love Aurelia. I love the talent. It's amazing. Okay, so, oh, beautiful. Well, he's still staying on the stage here. Isn't that great? Because he's going to be joined by Don James. And let me just tell you a little bit about Don. He's been an avid Gordon Lightfoot fan, of course, since the age of 12. And he learned how to play guitar with the help of a lifelong friend who suggested he buy a songbook of his favorite singer. And of course, that would be Gordon Lightfoot, The Way I Feel. And that's where the journey started for him. Chord by chord, verse by verse, he practiced in the solitude of his home, and he wanted them to sound like Gord was singing alongside them. So anyway, he does open mic sessions in Midland and LaFontaine area, which resulted in the first gigs coming Don's way, now retired from the OPP. Don't mess with him. No, okay. Don performs Gordon Lightfoot tribute shows in Parry Sound area, notably 3 appearances at the renowned Charles Stockey Centre in Parry Sound's idyllic waterfront. Don's humbled to be able to celebrate the life and music of Gordon Lightfoot, which we totally appreciate. So enjoy.
That was quite an intro. Thank you. It is an honor, a real honor to be here. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much for coming out. No added pressure with all the band members here, I guess, eh?
No pressure at all.
No pressure at all? All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from ocean well, in a castle dark or a fortress strong with chains upon my feet. You know that ghost is me, and I will never be set free as long as I'm a ghost you can't see. If I could read your mind, love, what a tale your thoughts could tell. Just like a paperback novel, the kind any drugstore would sell. When you reach the part where the heartaches come, the hero would be me. Heroes often fail, and you won't read that book again because the ending just too hard to take. I walk away like any movie star who gets burned in a three-way script. Enter number two, a movie queen to play the scene of bringing all the good things out in me. But for now, love, let's be real. I never thought I could act this way, and I've got to say that I just don't get it. I don't know where we went wrong, but the feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale your thoughts could tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well, in a castle dark or a fortress strong with chains upon my feet. The story's always in. If you read between the lines, you'll know that I'm just trying to understand the feeling that we lack. I never thought I could feel this way, and I've got to say that I just don't get it. I don't know where we went wrong. The feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back. Thank you.
Good job, buddy. Good job. Good job.
Thanks very much.
Okay, every time I hear Gordon Lightfoot songs, I don't know about you, but I start to tear up, and I just teared up. That was beautiful. Thank you. Okay, well, the lady I love this lady that I'm going to introduce you to, Wanda Hawkins. Wanda is the wife of rockabilly legend Ronnie Hawkins. He came to Canada in 1958, married Wanda in 1962, and then he never left. And he won an Order of Canada, by the way, even though he was an American. They have 3 beautiful children who are also very musically talented. Now, I call Wanda the boss because I've known her for many years, and she's the rock behind this rock legend who takes on the job of manager, roadie, chief financial officer, property manager, hairdresser, wardrobe organizer, to name a few, in her 60 years of marriage to Ronnie. During this time, she got to know many music legends like John Lennon, who with wife Yoko stayed at their farm in Mississauga. I think they also took a trip, a train ride across to meet Pierre Elliott Trudeau. But anyway, that's another story. Good one, too. But she became fond of some, but one that always stood out for her, and she was so fond of course, was Gordon Lightfoot. As she watched his star rise from the early days at the riverboat to becoming an international celebrity and Canada's treasure. And she also loves this, and I love this story too, watching the recording of me and Bobby McGee at the Hawkins farm on Stony Lake with Gordon, Ronnie, Chris Christopherson, and Willie Nelson joining him from Nashville. And if you go to YouTube, you can, it's magnificent. I urge you. Anyway, Wanda wanted to be here tonight because she wants to share some of the great memories. And ladies and gentlemen, my friend and also my daughter's godmother, Wanda Hawkins. Use this mic. Wanda Hawkins, everybody.
Happy to be here, and Linda, thank you for that introduction. I'm going to start from the early days of knowing and meeting Gordon. I met Gordon while I was in my bed, and Ronnie was working at the Lecoqador and just loved Gordon. And he got Gordon to come after his show and come to our bedroom and introduce me and have Gordon play some songs for me. So there I was in my pajamas, and Gordon's playing songs. I didn't know who Gordon was, but was he ever good? Anyway, Ron was so impressed, and he wanted to tell the world how great this guy was, you know, had this beautiful tone in his voice and the music and his beautiful words. So he called his best friend in Arkansas at 3 a.m. and got his wife up, and she got her husband up, and it was Senator Roy Thornton. And he came, he said, if Ronnie is calling, then it must be somebody important. So he got him on the phone, and Gordon played him several songs, and he was just so impressed. And this is like how I got to meet Gordon. Anyway, there's many stories, and I'm going to try to get them all in here. Okay. Oh, and also, we used to go see Gordon at the Steele's Tavern, and, Ron used to play after his work at the Lecoqador, and we'd go and listen to him. I didn't go very often because it was too late at night for me. Anyway, Ronnie was impressed with Gordon's soft and true tone of his voice, and his words were all so special. We became good friends for over 50 years, and went to see him play many times. One of our favorite places was to see him was at the Riverboat in Yorkville. Yes, Gordon. Bernie. Then came the big flood in Peterborough. Peterborough, they asked Ronnie to come and help raise some money for the people that were all flooded. And they were going to raise some money. And Ron said, well, if you want to raise a lot of money, we got to get Gordon Lightfoot. So they called Gordon, or Ronnie did, and asked him to be on the show. And he said, of course I'll be there. And so then an interview newsman asked him, Gordon, well, how come you came to Peterborough to do a flood benefit? And he said, well, when Ronnie calls, you go. It was getting around Christmas time, and Ronnie had been wanting to do a children's song. And he loved Gordon's song, The Pony Man. It reminded him of the early days, I guess of Ronnie's early days, or maybe he wanted a pony, I'm not sure. But anyway, he wanted to do this song, and so they went to a studio in Peterborough, and they recorded with the Weber brothers, and they did the Pony Man. And then they had time left over. And the Webers suggested that there's another song, a Christmas song, because it was Christmas time, that, maybe he should do. And it's called Christmas Must Be Tonight, written by Robbie Robertson. And it's a beautiful Christmas song, and if no one's ever heard it, go to YouTube because it's so beautiful. It should be a national Christmas song. It's just a beautiful song, and Gordon produced it, and so it's even better. And one evening in the farm, we were having dinner with Chris Christopherson, Gordon, and Kim, and along came Greg Keeler of Blue Rodeo. So Greg serenaded us while we were having dinner. It was really special. We're eating dinner and Greg Keeler from Blue Rodeo playing. Oh, it was great. We were getting ready to move to Peterborough. I thought I had the last hurrah party, and I did. We had a party of about 500 guests, and lots of bands performed. Chris, Blue Rodeo, Bev D'Angelo, B.J. Cook, Patty Janetta, Debbie, they all got up and they performed on stage, and Ron was not feeling the best, but they made him get up, and he was just as if it was, that he was not, sick or anything. And he got up there and just rocked like he was just he did when he was, way back when. And it was just the greatest memory. And then we talked about the Bobby McGee. They came to the house, and in our living room, they started off with Ronnie Hawkins. He did the first verse of Bobby McGee. Then Chris Christopherson did the second verse. Then Gordon did the third verse. And then they sang it together. I mean, it was so amazing. And Willie Nelson, after he heard that everybody was doing it and he wasn't in it, he demanded that he was going to be in it too. So they added him in the end. But anyway, we had a wonderful time together with Gordon and his family. And, he was Ronnie's best friend. Ronnie loved him, as we all did. And we just had a great time together. And it didn't matter whether Gordon was away or gone for a while, but when they got back and got together again, they were just all so happy as if it was like yesterday. So we had lots of great memories with Gordon. And by the way, Steve, Sundance was written at our farm in our cottage. And it was Gordon that was inspired there and wrote that song. Anyway, thank you all for coming. It's a great event to honor Gordon, and I'm just happy to be here to share my few stories. There's lots more that I had to tell, which I'm not able to. I can't tell all the stories. But anyway, thank you again.
Wow, Wanda, that was great. And I wanted to say, I've watched me and Bobby McKee recording, and how sad it is that Ronnie passed, and then, of course, Gordon, and then Chris Christopherson. And can you believe it? Willie Nelson is, 91? And he's still with us. God bless him. Next is a very, very special tribute. And John Winchester, president of this great event, is going to lead this. It's in memory of Karen Hilfman Milson in, I think, St. Paul's United Church. And that's where Gordon, I was in the choir there. Gordon, I couldn't sing like him though. But anyway, on that note, John Winchester.
So how's everybody enjoying these memories and stories and music so far? Absolutely outstanding. Thank you very much. Yes, John Winchester, part of a very outstanding committee here, and so proud to be representing them. And for a festival like this to be successful, there's really, I see it as 4 main ingredients. One ingredient, and it's the most important, is the reason for the festival, the inspiration for the festival. And you cannot do better than Gordon Lightfoot and the Gordon Lightfoot Band. Second thing that's important, very dedicated group of people to pull it together, and Daphne's already outlined all that. And thank you so much to my fellow committee members. Without a very devoted fan base, which is item number 3, and some people are here from California, Florida, Rhode Island, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania. Shout out if I've missed your province or I've missed your state. Outstanding. As Sutton and Midland are here too, from what I've been told. And the fourth very important thing, which Daphne outlined, is sponsors and promotional partners. And she's already gone through those. So those are the 4 things that you really need for a successful festival. And we've grown this from a pop-up festival last year to this one that is just absolutely outstanding. So basically, everybody here in this room is part of making this festival a success. Let's give ourselves a hand. The other part of my duty tonight is to, in the keeping of the theme of memories, is I have the honor of speaking about our festival's founder, and that's the Reverend Karen Helfman-Milson. For over 25 years, Karen was a very close friend of Gordon, and in subsequent years, very close friend with Kim. Karen first met Gordon in 1998 as she was the officiant at Jesse Lightfoot's funeral. And it wasn't long after that that Gord reached out and said, well, you know, when the time comes, if I go first, I would very much appreciate you being the officiant at my funeral. And before too long, Karen had reached out, and there were a series of interviews, radio, audio, video, that Karen and Gord did approximately between 2007 and 2013. And not long after that, Karen and a different committee decided that they would have the Aurelia Lightfoot Days, and they ran from 2013 to 2018. We know pandemic sort of shut all that down, and we maybe thought that was the end of the Lightfoot Days Festival. Well, we know what happened May 1st, 2023. It was a shock to all of us, and it still resonates, and I'm sure it resonates with all of you. And a few months after the funeral, which Karen was by now fighting cancer, she was worried that she would be well enough to be the officiant at Gord's funeral, and she was able to, and she was so relieved. And she felt it was a true honor for her to be the person who was there and when Gord came home from the forest. And within a couple of months, she reached out to a small group of us and asked, do you think it's time to relaunch the Gordon Lightfoot Festival? And I said, well, this is the end of July, and you want this to happen in November? I don't know, but Daphne Mainprize, Brian Hare, Mary Hoykus, Steve Porter, Rick Brown came on board, and the 6 of us pulled it together last year as a pop-up festival to see if it would work. And it worked so well. Karen held on to see that it was a very strong success because Karen was stubborn and dedicated and determined that it was going to be a success. And sadly, we lost her in February. So I would like us to have a moment for both Gordon and for Karen, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Mr. Steve Porter.
Let me just say a few words about Steve. Steve's music has been greatly inspired and influenced by Gordon Lightfoot, as Gord's songs resonated throughout his family and their homes for many decades. And now into the next generations. He had the bounty of being trained in guitar by Red Shea, Gordon's original lead guitarist. Wow, that's cool. Some of Steve's performances includes appearances at the Montreal Olympic Stadium, York Region Celebration of Arts. He has also performed in Israel, the United States, Mexico, and Ecuador. Hey, he is currently working on his next CD. Steve has also been providing music therapy, and music is so good for the soul and good. Just anyway, with many community service providers. Steve and his wife Diane proudly reside in Aurelia. He is a Lightfoot Days Festival board member, so we got to thank him for his hard work too here. All right. Welcome.
Thank you. So we were just, John was just talking about our dear Karen, and this next song is a song that Karen had asked me lovingly to sing at a service that she put together for our Lightfoot Festival last fall. It's called A Face of 1,000 People, and a lot of people might never have heard it because I don't believe Gord ever recorded it on a record. But I found it on a very old video, and there's my dear guitar buddy, Red Shea, who I miss deeply, and another gentleman playing the bass. And so they did it live. I think it might have even been in England. But I'd just like to say as well quickly that the story that Steve Ayers spoke about, the guitar that his uncle gave him. And, well, my uncle wasn't Gordon Lightfoot, but my uncle loved Gordon Lightfoot, and that's why I got into playing and learning so much about Gordon, was from my Uncle Jack. And the rest of my family, well, it goes right up to the next generation coming up, that they love Gord. And anyway, my uncle gave me this guitar. And he was my buddy. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this song. It's a lovely song, and I believe Karen had it right on when she asked me to sing it because it's got such a spiritual influence to the lyrics of Gordy's heart and his soul and his, and the times we were living in and the times he was living in then. And it hasn't changed much. Maybe it got worse. I don't know. Anyway, but this song touches me. I was born a restless one. I was born to learn the reason why, to take my troubles as they fall, to stand against the icy wind, to guard against confusion and to climb, to listen to the tongues of men that tell me that I must be told the meaning of my life and all its end. I was born to understand. I was born to lend a helping hand, to love the ones who care to love, to be a friend to those in need, to help the weary traveler in the night, forgetting not the wasted soul, the beggar man, the con man, and the widow and the orphan in the street, and the face of 1,000 people, the face of 1,000 people, telling me I'm out of step. Reality has passed me by, telling me that I've been wrong before. I was born to criticize. I was born to try and make things right. Today I saw the world again. It seemed the same as yesterday. The splendor of the ruin and the shame. Its towers rose against the sky, reminding all that cared to look that what's been built can be destroyed again. I was born to keep on trying. I was born to have a dream or two, to taste the pleasure of the night, to know the joy of love's embrace, to cherish every moment that is mine, to share my laughter with a friend, to teach the world and not pretend that there are those less fortunate than I. And the face of 1,000 people, the face of 1,000 people, keeps telling me I'm out to lunch. Reality has passed me by, telling me that I've been wrong before. I was born to recognize, to be aware of things that are not real, to tremble at the changing tide, too ominous to understand when brothers meet upon the battle lines, when bodies clothed in uniform to reap the harvest of their pride lie broken on the stands, on the stands. And the face of 1,000 people, the face of 1,000 people, keeps telling me I'm out of step. Reality has passed me by, they're telling me that I've been wrong before. I was born to sing my song. I was born to try and reach someone, to penetrate the iron will, to try and make man understand that being human is no sin at all, that beauty lies within the womb of loneliness and dark despair, that heals to fall but still to rise again. And the face of 1,000 people, the face of 1,000 people, keeps telling me I'm out of step. Reality has passed me by, they're telling me that I've been wrong before. They're telling me that I've been wrong before. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to thank you all for coming. And I'd like to thank the Lightfoot Band for coming. God bless them. They touched my heart this week by their music and their history. And just those guys were wonderful guys. Thank you, guys.
Wow, Steve, that was wonderful. And we're into something really, really good now. I got to make an introduction, and before I do, I'm going to say, in the words of Mike Myers, Wayne's World, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Bernie Fiedler is with us. Bernie Fiedler's in the room. He's a guy who, he's helped so many great careers get launched, but it was him and the Riverboat and where Gordon Lightfoot played. And I'll just tell you a little bit more. He's still active in the whole industry. which is amazing. And he helped people, not just Gordon Lightfoot, but how about the likes of Joni Mitchell? How about the likes of Neil Young? And how about even James Taylor? But there's more. And just a little bit of background. After that Yorkville's heyday passed, Fiedler moved on and he became an artist manager. And he helped so many Canadian talent to the big time, as Ronnie would say, the big time. And these acts were top-ranked names. His career actually began in 1948 in his native Berlin, and he was a boy soprano with the Berliners Boys Choir. And he did so much more, Mozart, et cetera, et cetera. He immigrated to Canada in 1957. Bernie operates BC Fiedler Publishing, which promotes Canadian composers and classical arrangements, both locally and internationally. And he also operated City Kids, which promotes awareness for children's charities. A big hand for Bernie, who's in the house today. Okay. Bernie, a standing ovation there. Next up, do I need to even introduce these guys? The Lightfoot Band. Oh my God, last night at the Opera House, you brought the house down. Let me just share a little bit. These guys have been with Gordon all along throughout the years, and they've toured internationally. And I gotta tell you, I even took some clients of Cambria to Florida to see you guys play. And of course, the lovely Kim was there. United States, United Kingdom, Europe, Australia, and so much more. The band includes veterans, Rich Haynes on bass, and you're going to see him in a few minutes. Barry Keane on drums and percussion, Mike Heffernan on keyboards, and Carter Lancaster on the lead guitar. Now, who was with us last night at the concert? Oh, amazing. Because they introduced Andy Mock as their lead vocalist. I got to say, bang right on. And playing a Martin D18 guitar and Gibson B45 12-string, as Gordon did. Andy has been a student of Gord's craft and a personal friend of his for 50 years. So it's so great to see the band living on in memory of Gordon. They are keeping it alive with, and you heard the hits last night, Sundown, Carefree Highway, The Wreck of Edmund Fitzgerald, I cried, again. Beautiful Early Morning Rain, and I love that song, Beautiful. I wish it was for me, but anyway. Anyway, a big round of applause. They're going to share some insight in a panel, and you're going to get to hear from Bernie as well. So a big hand. Come on up.
Thank you, Linda.
Are there seats for everybody here?
I think so. We need one more.
We need one more.
Here we go. Come on down.
Come on down.
We want to get you all in with the videos because this is being videotaped, guys.
Yeah.
I'm here for you, bro.
Okay. All right. Hey, whoever wants to get the show on the road.
Count us in, Barry.
Barry, you're the leader.
Take it away, Bernie.
Well, thanks for everybody for coming. It's a privilege for me to be here. These guys are famous. I'm behind the scenes usually. When John Livingston called me and he said, "Would like you to come down and talk about Gordon Lightfoot and his life with you," I said I'd be delighted, and here I am. Let me start off by saying, when I ran the riverboat, I was doing pretty good. We had some pretty major artists coming in there. If you're ever interested in who played the riverboat, go to theriverboat.ca and you'll see all the people. You'll be amazed who played there. Anyway, Gordon was one of them. But the way I got to Gordon was one afternoon a guy came in and he said to me, you know, I really like your club here, but you're making a lot of mistakes. You know, there's some people out there you should be having and you don't have them. I said, well, what are you talking about? Well, there's this guy up at Steele's Tavern singing, and he should be playing here, he said to me. I said, well, what's his name? And he said, Steele's Tavern. He said, yes. So I immediately the next night went down to Steele's Tavern and heard Gordon's last song. Well, I was thrilled to see him, and I went up to Gordon and I said, you know something? I own the riverboat, and I'd love you to come and play at the riverboat at my place, and I'll pay you twice as much money as this guy pays you here. And he said, all right, you know, as Gordon would say. Right? So that started a friendship that ended about a year ago when Gordon passed away. Gordon was my best friend for years, and I really miss him. I won't be talking a lot about the music because these guys will, they've lived with him a lot closer than I did, but to me, he was my best friend, and I pretty much get a call from Gordon, you know, once a week at least or something for either let's go out for dinner or, you know, let's, or I gave him quite a bit of advice too down the road. He was appreciative. And so anyway, so he started playing at the riverboat, and maybe about 3 or 4, maybe 5 times. It started off as a week, then we went to 2 weeks, and then I finally said to him, you know, Gordon, it's time for you to do concerts instead of coming to the riverboat, and because I also promoted concerts, you know, over the years. And so he said, well, I'm not so sure. I said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't you come and play in 1967 in January for 4 weeks. Every night we do 4 shows a night. And he said, do you think I can fill that? I said, well, let's give it a shot. I'm pretty sure you do. This was a very heavy winter. There was a lot of snow, and people were lining up. 4 shows were sold out every night for the 4 weeks, okay? And every time people used to come in for their second show, they had snow on their shoulders to about there. And by the time Gordon was finished with his first half set, you know, the place was underwater, you know, everybody. Anyway, it went really good. So then anyway, so he did listen to me, and we did do Massey Hall. That was the Sunday concert. This was just before the Sunday concert because we played there before. Just maybe 1 or 2 more concerts before that. So I thought about what stories can I tell about Gordon Lightfoot, and stories that I think nobody actually would know. So I'll start off with, I had a house on Roxborough Street in Toronto, and I built a swimming pool. And all the artists that used to play the riverboat used to come there. And we had lots of parties, and it was just a wonderful place to come. And of course, Gordon came as well. The only problem was that, I mean, one day I couldn't believe what I'm seeing. There's Gordon standing on my roof in that house and jumped into my pool. I got to tell you something. It was a large pool. It was 15, you know, feet or whatever. But I mean, there was a shallow side. There was a deep side, you know. And I said, "Oh my God, this guy's unbelievable." I think he might have had a few drinks. I think. Anyway, he got away with murder there, or you know, with his life or whatever. And at another occasion, and this is the real Gordon Lightfoot. We're all around, and I think Joni Mitchell was there at the time. Some of my waitresses were there. One of them was pregnant. She had a little baby. And all of a sudden, the baby fell into the pool. And you know what happens when something like that happens. Everybody goes, ah! The first guy was Gordon Lightfoot. Hands on his knees, hands in there, pulled out that baby. The baby wasn't in the water more than 10 seconds, okay? And that was Gordon, and he didn't think he did a big deal, but everybody else applauded, and the baby was saved. What other stories? One thing I wanted to ask is there anybody here who has a question about Gordon Lightfoot's private life? Just a question. Anybody, I'm serious, if anybody would like to know something that they... Pardon? Nobody?
What was his favorite food?
Well, no, wait, that's really good. I think it was black coffee. And black coffee. I mean, Gordon, that's why he turned so thin. Gordon didn't really eat on the road. The road manager, Warren, can tell you. I mean, his plate was so small, and he hardly ever ate it. I mean, I don't know what... I remember the early days when Gordon was drinking a lot, and we always went out to Bigliardi's and what have you. He loved his steaks. But he never really was a big eater. And he ate pretty much everything, I think, but very little. Any other questions about Gordon? Okay.
Corney, do you remember what Ronnie nicknamed Gordon?
No, I tell me. Gordonia. I only remember Jack Nicholson called him Footsie. So anyway, the other story that I want to tell is at the time when he was just making it fairly big, I said to him, you know, Gordon, you need a holiday. Why don't you and I and his girlfriend at the time, Kathy, and my pregnant wife at the time, let's go to Mexico together. And he said, all right, let's try that. Why don't you work it out? And I said, how much time have you got? And he said, well, I'll give it 3 weeks. He said, okay. So we rented an incredible, beautiful villa in I think it was about the late, maybe the early 70s. I'm not exactly sure the time. But so we rented this villa in Puerto Vallarta for 3 weeks. Very, very beautiful place. There was a huge pool in the middle. He had his quarters there. I had my quarters there. My wife was pregnant. He had Kathy with him. Anyway, we arrived there, and we just loved the fact that we actually wound up in this wonderful... Toronto was very cold, so we were happy. The next morning, I couldn't believe what I'm seeing. There's Gordon with his suitcases, and he said, I'm going home. I said, Gordon, we paid for 3 weeks this vacation.
I don't care.
I don't care, he said. I said, what is wrong with you? He said, at 5 o'clock in the morning, he goes, ee-aw, ee-aw. And then, I mean, I said, well, that's what I love about this place. And he says, we're going home. And I remember his girlfriend was really peed off at him. So, another story that people, I don't know whether you people know, a lot of people know Gordon a little bit, I think. But he was the most generous guy that I have ever met in my life. And not only did he help a lot of artists that were constantly, short of money, what have you, like people like David Ray or, whoever. He lent the money and he probably never saw it again. Gordon looked after his entire family forever. He couldn't care less about himself. He did live in a wonderful mansion, but he was... That was important for him. I think he carried on the road to make money so he can continue helping everybody. At one point it was about 1974, I got into trouble with the tax department. Now, I got to tell you, though, Gordon and I were very, very close friends, okay? And, we shared a lot of... I remember when he left his first wife, Brita, I arranged for him to come and live with me in the Round Tower on Alexander Street, and I furnished his apartment and got a guy coming in to put all the furniture up and what have you. Anyway, so we were very, very close. So I got in trouble with the tax department, and I went to his office, and he had a manager by the name of Al Mayer. And Al Mayer looked after his business. And he go and said, okay, Al, would you write Bernie a check for $35,000? And this is 1974. $35,000 was a lot of money. And Al said, oh, okay, all right, what are the terms? And he said, Gordon said, no terms. And I said, what do you mean no terms? No terms. Just write the check, Al. And Al says, well, when does he have to pay the money back? He says, Gordon said, whenever he can. Okay, so this went on and on, and he said, write the check, write the check. Story isn't over yet. This was the provincial government. Now the federals came in. They wanted another $35,000 from me. I had to go back. We went through the same scene. Al, write the check. Al, write the check. That's not all. There's another, on top of it, something else came in there. In fact, he wrote a check in all, 3 checks in all, for $95,000, okay? No interest, no terms, no nothing. I must tell you, I did pay him back every cent over the years. Yes?
How did each one of you band members, how did you first meet Gord or get hired by Gord?
Well, Gordon never hired me. I hired him to do the concert. Huh?
Each one of the band members? Are these the band members?
All these. I've been living with all of them.
I'd just like to ask each one of them, how did you audition? How did you get to be with Gord?
I guess you would call me the oldest living member of the band. I'm going to be 80 soon, but so I'll go first. I'll make a long story short. Yeah, I auditioned. I came to Gord's house. I got a phone call from Gord. I heard you want to play in my band. This was after I laid the groundwork by contacting Red Shea. And thanks, Steve, for mentioning Red Shea, because Red Shea was a sweet, dear man and a very good friend of mine. When I first contacted Red, I said, I heard you guys are looking for a bass player. And Red said, I don't know. And he said, but give me your number anyway, and maybe we'll call you. It's, pretty typical blow-off, right? So about a few weeks later, the phone rang. He said, hi, this is Gord. And yeah? And he said, Gordon Lightfoot. I said, yeah, I know. He said, I heard you want to play in my band. I said, yeah, I'd love to try. He said, well, we'll make arrangements for you to come down to the house, and we'll have an audition. So that's how it started for me. I went down to Gord's house on Poplar Plains Road and dragged my bass amp up the sidewalk because you couldn't park on Poplar Plains. I had to park around the corner. And anyway, brought a bass amp, brought a bass, and met Gord and Red Shea there. Spent an afternoon with them. And that was my audition, and I got hired a couple days after that. Thank you. Back to 1972, I got a phone call from the head engineer at RCA Studios in Toronto. Would you like to play on a Gordon Lightfoot album? So I thought about it for a second and said, yeah. I was I still am a studio musician, so I was hired to play on Old Dan's records with Gord back then. We got along well. Gordon had never had a touring drummer, and he said, would you like to go on the road? And I said, I'll think about it. I had a full-time job at the time in the record business. And he said,
I'd like to see what it's like with drums. So, typical Gordon Lightfoot, he rented Massey Hall. And it was Rick, Terry, Red wasn't there.
No,
No, it was
Red
just-
not there.
Just Rick and Terry, Gord, and myself with a full set of drums, no sound system. And I mean, there's certain things you never forget. Gordon Lightfoot standing right in front of the drum kit, facing me, singing, "If You Could Read My Mind." And I'm sitting there trying to play drums along and trying to get over the fact that it's Gordon Lightfoot, this is Massey Hall. Anyway, it went well enough that Gord said, I have a little 3-day tour coming up, Cleveland, Washington, and Buffalo, and I want you to play. I said, okay. 2 weeks before, he called and said, man, I don't know, I got cold feet. I've never had a drummer, so let's not do it right now. I said, okay. Fast forward to the Juno Awards, 1975, and Gord came up to me and said, hey man, how are you doing? I said, oh, I'm doing fine. Well, I got this here album coming up, which turned out to be Summertime Dream. I want you to play on it, man, and I want you to go on tour with us. So I did the Summertime Dream album, and then we were booked, and that was 48 years that I spent with Gord on tour.
Our good friend Mike Heffernan is next.
November the 10th, 1980 will live in infamy. I was called in the afternoon, early in the afternoon on a Monday, by Ken Friesen, who was Gord's engineer. And he said, and I had done some work with him before, and he said, can you get down to Eastern Sound in half an hour? Well, I live in Mississauga, and even in those days, that was a stretch. So I said 45 minutes, and I made it in 45 minutes. And it was a session for this theme song for a movie that he had just wrapped with Bruce Stern. It was called Harry Tracy Desperado. I don't know if anybody saw it, but it wasn't a bad movie. I recommend you picking it up or renting it if you can. Anyways, we did this song. Coincidentally, it was written by Red Shea's brother. It wasn't one of Gord's originals. Les Pouliot, he wrote the tune. And he gave me this chord chart. We sat down, and he gave me about a minute to look at the thing. And we rolled the tape, and the rest of the guys had already had their parts. So it was... it was pretty solid foundation to build on. And at the end of it, he said, that's good. And that was the last compliment I got for 10 years. Now, as I was saying earlier today, that's not a shot at him. You know, he was, most band leaders, I came to, after working for a lot of them, I came to realize that if they don't say anything, it's okay. You know, you just got to look out for their, nah, that's crap. Which I would get from time to time with Gord. You know, he said, try this. No, not that. Try this. You know, anyways, he liked what I played, so he turned it into, he started playing his tunes. And I moved from the grand piano over to the Fender Rhodes there in the studio, and we played a whole bunch of his tunes. And he was impressed because I was able to follow along. I had to play very basically, but at the end of it, he said, would you consider maybe joining the band? And I said, it's like I said, let me think about it, okay. And that was in, like I say, November the 10th, 1980. I didn't hear anything at all until December the 23rd. Ken phoned me and this whole bad joke about, okay, I got good news and bad news. What do you want first? I said, okay, I'll play along with this. Give me the bad news. He says it's going to be cold as hell Christmas Day, and the good news is you got the gig. He said, I'm going to give you Gord's number and give him a call. Wait till a couple of days after Christmas and call. So I waited till the 27th, and I called him up, and he answered, and I said, this is Mike Heffernan speaking. He said, who? And I thought maybe Ken had played a little prank on me. It wasn't, you know, he was known for these kind of things. Anyways, no, as it turned out, Gord said, by the end of the phone call, Gord said, we're going to have a couple of rehearsals, and I've got this 3 days at the Mill Run Theater in Chicago at the end of January, and we'll give it a shot then. And that was it. And so 44 years I spent with these guys.
And just for the record, Mike did not replace the steel player, also known as Pee Wee Charles, Ed Ringwald. Ed joined us in
74.
76.
75, 76. He was with us for quite a while. What I'm trying to get at here is there was quite a bit of overlap because Ed left the band in 1988, and Michael joined us in 1981, roughly. So there was quite a bit of overlap, and Mike did not replace Ed Ringwald. But throughout all this also, Terry Clements was playing guitar with us. Red Shea had left the band to get off the road, and Terry was with us for all this period of time. Well, around 2010, Terry was getting into medical distress, and Carter, maybe you'd like to pick it up from there, how you got on this.
Sure. There is a famous recording studio in Hamilton, Ontario in Canada. It's not famous anymore, it's been sold, but it was called Grand Avenue Studios at the time. And it's where Gordon had recorded his last 2 albums. And I think you produced both of them, if I remember correctly.
It's Harmony for sure.
Harmony for sure. And the owner there, his name was Bob Deutsch, and I had done a solo album there on an instrument called a harp guitar. And Bob was my engineer for that project. And I had stopped in one day and to talk about mastering the project, and Bob was on his telephone, and he was saying, I know. And I just poked my head in his office and just let him know that I was there. And his eyes just went big as saucers, and his chin hit the desk. And he said, I think our answer just walked in the door. I got to call you back. And he hung up the phone, and he came over, and we had done a number of sessions together, Bob and I. He knew that I could read. He knew that I could improvise. He knew that I could play lots of different styles. And he gave me a list of 8 songs, and he said, how long would it take you to learn these songs? And I sort of said, well, I could probably get through most of these right now. They look like Gordon Lightfoot songs. And he said, yeah, that's right, but you got to be able to play them like you've been playing them for 40 years. So I said, okay, so I need at least a day a song. And he said, 8 days? And I said, yeah, 8 days, I could do that. And he goes, oh man, I'm going to have Rick call you. And I said, okay. Keep in mind, I'm thinking that this is a Gordon Lightfoot tribute band, and I'm not even sure if I'm interested in it yet. So Rick calls me, and we had a nice conversation on the phone. And Rick says, I think I'm going to have Gord call you. And this is when I'm starting to clue in that this is the Gordon Lightfoot Band, and I've just spoken to the world-renowned Rick Haynes, the bass player, and I'm thinking, this is craziness. And then Gord gets on the phone, and Gord invites me to come to his house to practice because he's got an HBO special coming up, and Terry, who had fallen into distress, he wasn't sure if Terry was going to be able to do the gig or not. So I took these 8 songs, and I showed up at Gord's house on the Friday, and I sympathized with Barry, who says, Gord was standing a foot in front of him. Gord did exactly the same thing to me.
You'll get used to it.
Yeah. It was 100 degrees in his house. I'm beating sweat. I swear I was wearing a wool sweater or something. And Gord is literally standing 6 inches in front of me listening to every single note I'm playing. And it was very stressful. And at the end of the first song, which was Read My Mind, I just thought to myself, wow, Carter, way to go. All this stress, you killed it. Good for you. And Rick and Mike, Barry wasn't there, Rick and Mike were both staring at Gord. Nobody's looking at me. Gord's kind of got this frown on his face, and he walked over to this desk where he had this list of songs, and he just did a check mark, and there was just an instant stress relief on his face, you could see, and he turned around and he went, well, that wasn't bad. And then Rick and Mike just went, yeah, it was really good. Let's take a break, he said. And I thought, we've only played one song. So we took a break, and Gord said, do you play electric as well as you play acoustic? I said, yeah, I do. I'll be the judge of that. Okay. All right. So we go back, and I pick up my electric, and we play The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And once again, I thought I killed it. Nobody's looking at me. They're all looking at Gord. Gord's got a frown on his face. Walks over to his desk. Great big huge check mark on the list. Well, that was pretty good too. Yeah. Let's take a break. So we took another break, and we're sitting in the foyer, and he asked me if I could go on tour. He said, can you go on tour? And I said, well, I guess it depends on how long you guys go out on tour for. And he said, we never, ever, 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 ever go out more than 11 days at a time. And that was his Pinocchio nose. Because I think my first tour, wasn't it, Mike? For like 21 days or something?
It was a long one.
It was a pretty long one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's how I got introduced to Gord, and I ended up doing over 1,000 concerts with him.
Thank you, Carter.
Every one more stressful than the one prior. And I just have to say one more thing. Mike, I can't believe you actually got a compliment, because I never did. I'm just kidding.
Thank you, Carter. You know, then fast forward to 2023, and the terrible tragedy happened. And so we were all in shock, of course, as you all were. And it was a very difficult time for all of us. We didn't speak to each other very much for a while, but we got around to it. We got around to checking in on each other, the band, and saying, how are you doing? How are you getting along? What do you think? And it was really a shock, because I think you all know that Gord was the kind of guy that you didn't think we were going to lose him. He was larger than life in a lot of ways, and he was tough, and he came back from some pretty difficult situations. So I would say nobody was more surprised than I was that he didn't make it through this one, but he didn't. And so we had to decide what we were going to do. And they say that old musicians don't retire, they just look for work. So we started talking, we decided to have a meeting. And Barry, you could maybe expound on that a little bit, about our meeting.
We got together in a restaurant in Mississauga, which is where Mike and Rick live. And we compared notes on how are you and what do you think we should do. We had several ideas about maybe we could get guest singers. We could have singers in certain cities maybe show up. All that seemed pretty complicated. So we came to the conclusion that we should find one, if there was going to be one, because there will never be another Gordon Lightfoot, ever. But maybe we could find somebody who was a good guy. Maybe we could find somebody who sang well, somebody who knew Gordon Lightfoot songs, somebody we could get along with. Anyway, we ended up having Andy come up from Florida. We knew him. He was a fan. He can expound on this.
He was part of our culture, really.
He was.
We've known him since the 70s.
That was the hard part, getting into that culture.
So anyway, as it turns out, I mean, if you can find somebody who checks a few of the boxes, you're really in good shape. We found somebody who checked every box, and we are so lucky that we found Andy.
To be clear, we were never talking about replacing Gord or anything like that. We were talking about perpetuating the songs of Gordon Lightfoot, because we all felt that Gord is the greatest songwriter of our era. And we felt very strongly as a band, as his original recording and touring band, that those songs should live on, and we could do our best to try to do that. So that's when we started talking to Andy.
Yeah, it's just a bizarre story, and you know, the kind of thing movies are made of, I guess you could say, because I started out as just a fan. I mean, at 14, I heard A Figure Read My Mind, and it blew me away. And I learned about the intricacies of the arrangements and what made this band so special, because I happen to believe that the band is really what pushes the song from being a great song to a hit. It's the arrangements that they make that impact your soul. The feel of that music comes from these guys. You know, Gord writes great stuff, but not everyone has a band like this, and not everyone keeps a band around this long. That says something about these guys. And so I had admired them. I was a huge fan for several years. Learned how to play guitar because I wanted to learn how to do that. And so at 14, I really started trying. I saw how this one guy could play Read My Mind, and the chicks really liked it. And so I was like, okay, I got to do that. But it took me 50 years to get there. But I was just a huge fan and would come to shows and so on. And I happened to get a chance to meet them once in '76 at a big, giant Blossom Music Center, I think it was. I got to meet them all, my idols. These are my idols. They still are my idols. Gord obviously was like the top of the heap for me. He's the coolest dude ever. And so I got to meet these guys, and I had lost my Martin D18 in the Bahamas. I was a scuba instructor, and it got stolen. And so I was kind of really heartbroken, and I'm talking to Terry Clements, my guitar idol, and here's this Martin D18 sitting in the case on the floor open. And I told him the story, and he goes, "Oh, play mine, man." And I did. I'm like, holy cow, Terry Clements' D18. And it felt like mine so much and sounded so much. And I looked at serial numbers 2 digits away from mine. So Terry and I bonded, this is before cell phones and internet crap, so we just bonded, and that was it. And then I just went home to Columbus, 3-hour drive later, just high as a kite from that experience, and it was just the coolest thing ever.
The good news is he did get that guitar back.
I did get the guitar back.
Yeah.
That's a different story. But a year later, I go back to Blossom Music Center, and they're playing there again. Now, this time I don't have a direct connection to get a backstage pass. And an hour before the show, I walk behind the pavilion, and these guys are out there tuning up. Ed was with them at the time, and they're all tuning up out there. And a crowd was standing there, just 5 or 10 people, maybe. And they would, every once in a while, look at them, smile. And I got a double take out of Gord and then Terry. And after a while, Gord goes, "Don't we know you?" And Terry goes, "Oh, hey, man, did you get your guitar back?" I'm like, how many people do these guys meet? In 1976, Fitzgerald just came out, top of the charts, top of their fame, and they remember me? So Terry goes, "Oh, you coming back after the show?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a pass." And Gord puts down his 12-string and goes over to the security guy. He goes, "We think we know this guy. We think he's trustworthy. Can we get him a pass?" So this time hanging out with him after the show was a little different, especially with Terry and I, because I told him I'd get the guitar back, and it was cool. Terry ends up saying, "Hey, man, here's my phone number. What's your phone number? And we'll be in touch, and if we're ever around." And sure enough, he called me a few weeks later. "Hey, you anywhere near Muncie, Indiana?" I said, "No, but it could be. I'm in Columbus, Ohio." And I'd show up for a show, and they'd have tickets. And so the next 47 years, they couldn't get rid of me. So I got to know these guys as friends. That was first and foremost. My idols became my friends. Still a very special thing, and Gord, too. I mean, to get to know that guy took a lot longer, obviously, to get really close with Gord, but it became such a wonderful thing. But my playing and singing, I was never a professional musician, ever, until I got this job. And there's a lot of musicians been trying for a long time who are really pissed about that. But it's all I cared to play. In high school, I'm just learning this Lightfoot stuff and very little else, and everyone's making fun of me. But that's what I loved. It's the music I love the most. And so I became a good student of that, and I learned to sing by singing along with his records. And I had a friend teach me some guitar stuff, and I'd work at it. And again, 50 years later, I got okay at it. But I never played in front of these guys very consciously, because in the first year or two of getting to know these guys, I'm on the road with them somewhere, and Terry takes me into Gord's room somewhere on the road, and there's a little party going on, and some young guy shows up with a guitar.
We never had any party.
No, I'm sorry. It was a business meeting. So this kid starts playing Every Grade in My Mind really badly. And I said right then and there, that's never going to be me. So I'm never playing in front of these guys. But over the years, friends of us that had guitars, we would come to shows, and we would just play guitar in the bars before and after the show.
Especially at Massey Hall.
Yeah, at the Pantages, at the party stuff. But not when these guys came in by. And Gord had quit coming to the bars pretty much by this point. But would never do it in front of these guys. But Rick caught me by surprise once. Was it 10 degrees and getting colder? And I noticed him in the room, and I almost clammed up. But he's walking around just listening and not talking to anybody. And by the time I finished, he whispers in my ear, "You don't know how good that was." Well, that made me feel incredible, right? And that was the end of that. So now you skip forward a few years, and now look, Gord's health's going bad, and he kind of floated the idea if he ever couldn't do it, would you be interested? I said, I can die tomorrow. Just the fact that you would even, and I hoped it never would happen, but it did. So now it got real, and Rick called me, I think in September, something like that, and said they've had a meeting with the guys, and we really want to keep this going. And we went all around the block with options, and you're already part of us. You're already family. And I know you can do this because I've heard you. And I got to record something with Mike and Rick one time, recorded Farewell to Annabelle at Grant Avenue Studios. So they were aware, but Barry and Carter had not, so they had to be sold on this. And so Rick says, when can you come up? And I think Dorothy and I were getting on the plane to go to St. Thomas. We used to live there, and I don't remember a thing about that trip after that. I got back to, and I think I came up about 2 weeks later, and in Michael's basement, I got a chance to play with these guys, and they had sent me nice notes. I mean, Barry particularly. Now, Andy, I know you're going to be nervous. This is just a bunch of old friends playing music. I'm going, yeah, right, easy for you to say. But they were very kind and supportive, but I was going to be nervous, and they said, let's start off with whatever you want this season. I said, well, Watchmen's easy, And stop, too fast. Stop, too fast. Or stop, don't sing so loud. Stop, don't play so loud. I said, well, I've blown this all. How they all laughed at you. Because I was playing solo gigs at a wine bar every other week. That was the extent of my professional experience. And they said, that's what happens, though, when you play bars, right? You're playing over the crowd, and you want to keep it moving, and all the nuances go away. And they said, go get next to the metronome, and go back and have at this. And so, when can you come back? So I came back a week or two later, and evidently had put in enough work that they had a meeting, and I was told to wait outside. It was like The Voice or American Idol, Oh, now we're going to a commercial break, so I make wait even longer. And Keno comes out and says, Mr. Mock, would you like to come in for your verdict? And I walked in, and Heffernan says, congratulations, you're in the band. It's the biggest honor of my whole life. And but that's where the work began, because they now had to take this rookie, inexperienced guy and work him into a much higher level of accuracy and timing and all those things. I'm still here almost a year later, so I'm doing it. But and the support they've given me and the little tweaks that have really made the difference, I couldn't be here otherwise. But it's still just to keep Gordon Lightfoot's songs alive, that material, to play with the guys that helped create it. It's I can't describe it. So.
And he's doing great.
Yeah, really. And that's the last compliment you're going to get for 10 years.
Yeah, I just got a compliment. That's the last one.
So thank you for asking.
Yeah.
That was a long answer.
And by the way, at the first edition, I had to have Carter sit 6 inches in front of me.
So I want to thank Bernie for all of his comments earlier. I want to first key off something Bernie said that reminded me about the kind of a guy that Gordon was. And Michael is going to help me tell this story because he tells it very well. We were on the road. We were traveling in the wintertime between Calgary and Edmonton. And it was wintertime, and they get squalls out there like crazy. And we were
we weren't flying between those two cities. They weren't that far apart. So we decided to do the drive. And we were driving along. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. And all of a sudden, we hit a whiteout. And you couldn't see anything. The snow was everywhere. And what did we find, Michael? What happened?
Well, there was some black ice, which didn't matter. I mean, because we couldn't see anything anyways. But it cleared enough for us to see a van in front of us go off the side of the road, slide off, and flip, like more than once. And so we pulled over, and Gord was the first guy out, running down to help these people out. And this was a dangerous situation, because if they slid off the road, that meant other cars would be doing it too. And a lot of people were driving not for the conditions. They were driving too fast. So Gord was right there, right on the money. And you know, I never doubted that he was that kind of guy. He was the kind of guy that little things drove him crazy. But when there was big things, he was totally together and organized, you know? And he was a great guy in a crisis, in other words. Yeah. So we had to, it was turned out to be 2 ladies and 3 kids. Yeah. And
they were still strapped upside down in the van, upside down, with the wheels were still turning when we approached the van.
Yeah, so we had a very small time period small window to get them out of there and get them into our cars. And it was dicey. There was one spot there, and Gordon and I were really pushing for these people to move because they were in shock, and they were trying to go back into their van to get stuff. We said, we got to get out of here. You know, as soon as within a minute after moving from that spot, a car slid off and went right in there. So it was really close. And then we took them to an RCMP station somewhere along the ways there. And
they took care of them.
Yeah, reported the accident, and that was it. You know, I think it ended up in the newspaper the next day.
Oh yeah, it was on the news.
I didn't see it, but
no, it was on the news though. Yeah. So that. Just wanted to thank you, Mike. Yeah. That was the kind of guy Gord was. He was the first one. Hey, we got to go help those people. So thanks for reminding us about what Gord was like, Bernie. And I personally want to thank Bernie also because back in December last year, I called Bernie. I said, you know, Bernie, we're getting the band back together. And I want to invite you. We put together a show at the El Macombo in Toronto. I want to invite you to the show. And Bernie was like, I don't have to come to see you guys. I'll book you. I said, Bernie, you have to see the product, right? I said, it's not going to be that easy because Gordon's not with us anymore. So please come and see us.
Since then, we've done 24 shows now.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night we're in Hamilton, and a sold-out show. And I think we're in Kitchener-Waterloo shortly after that.
In a couple of weeks. And in Kitchener, Ed Ringwald, a.k.a. Pee Wee Charles, is joining us for that show to get integrated back into the Lightfoot Band just as a special occasion because that's our last Canadian show of 2024.
But I think it's a wonderful thing what this band is doing. I know in my heart that Gordon would love it. He really would love it. Gordon never thought he was anything special. He didn't think he had a talent. Years before he sort of passed, he started to say to me, you know something, I think I had a gift, but that's not me. I had a gift. I wrote some great songs, and it was nice to hear, you know.
And
hey,
right
Rick,
along that,
the story about the Songwriters Hall of Fame, I think is a great story.
Well, I'll finish with that, what Bernie was just talking about, how humble Gord was. And sometimes people thought he was hard to get to know and maybe difficult.
He was very shy.
He was very shy. Gordon was very shy.
And insecure.
And he was also insecure. And if you think about it, who should be secure and not shy is Gordon Lightfoot. But he was a very humble man, very, very shy, basically. Anyway, he was nominated by the American Songwriters Hall of Fame for their big award in 2012.
USA,
Yeah, And it's held annually. They pick one person to honor each year at the American Songwriters Hall of Fame. In the business, it's actually, for writers and people like Gordon, it's a bigger deal than Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And Gordon was also very sensitive. He said, it's too much trouble to take the whole band down there. Why don't you and Carter just come down there with me and we'll do If You Could Read My Mind as a trio, right?
Yep.
Well, you know, I fought him on that a little bit. I said, Gord, we should take the whole band.
Yep.
And he really didn't want to. He says, it's too much trouble. I don't want to bother the guys. That's how he was. But, you know, we went down there and we did that show, and the long list of who's who was at that show, honoring Gordon Lightfoot. And I have to say, on the way home in the plane, we didn't even stay for the big party afterwards. He said, let's get out of here and go home and get on the plane. And on the way home, he leaned over to me in the plane. He says, well, I guess I have made it. You know, because he wasn't sure. All those years, he really wasn't sure. And he wasn't still that sure because he was a very humble guy.
Yeah.
So that's how we remember Gordon Lightfoot. Thank you all for coming.
And to say
thank you for
just
coming.
1 second. And to say for Canada, there isn't an award that Gordon didn't get. He's got every one of them. And he deserved it, I'm sure. Thank you. And by the way, I want to thank John Livingston for putting this together.
Winchester.
Winchester, sorry, Livingston. Winchester. Thank you, and I think you should continue that the years to come, as it will be a great, great event coming down the pike for Gordon. And also, I'd like to mention we have Nick Jennings down there with his books. Nick Jennings used to be my dishwasher at the riverboat, and so we're all buddies and friends. And I've been with these guys here on the road so many times. Massey Hall itself, I produced over 175 concerts in there, and so we're family, and we include you now as our family as well, if that's okay with everybody here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Back to Linda.
Thank you, guys. That was amazing, and all the insight. And I got to say, he never thought that he really did make it, but he made it. And thank you guys for all the music. And Bernie, I have a cousin in the audience, Rick Ross. He's pretty good. Can you help him? Okay. You know what?
In my next life.
The next life.
I'm 86 years of age now.
Yeah. Anyway, now we got a closing remarks. But this lady is a wonderful lady, and thanks again. I got to meet her, Kim Lightfoot, and for her to. We did some events together. She's just lovely, and I don't think she really needs an introduction to everybody here. Gordon Lightfoot's wife, and please come up, okay?
Where should I go? Hi, everyone. I'm just going to start kind of at the beginning. Had a cousin named John who played Gordon Lightfoot music. Turned my brother onto it. They both write songs and play guitar and sing. And I would always request Early Morning Rain and Second Cup of Coffee. And I was a little girl. And then go forward, and maybe in my early 20s, Gordon and the band played in Claremont, California. And my brother said, we're going, because he was a huge, bigger fan than I was. And so we went, and my brother talked to some manager, and I think it was that El Mayor guy, and he said, could we ever meet him? Does he ever do that? And the guy kind of sized us up, and he says, sure, wait here by this little house place. It was a college. And he says, after the show, you can meet him. And so my brother and I stood in line for about 15 minutes. And my brother got a little insecure, and he says, he's not even in here. He says, we're going to go. We're out of here. We're out of here. So he takes my arm. I was like, at this point, I kind of wanted to stay, right? And then, so I went with my brother. He was driving, and it was a great performance. And I was smitten with, he had just sang a song, Morning Glory. So I don't know, somehow I just loved that song. And so that was in 1987. I believe, 1987. And then in 1993, my brother wanted tickets for his date, and I had a best girlfriend. And so I stood in the heat at the Greek Theater. It was like in the 90s, sweating, and, they're all home getting ready, resting, and, and a guy came out, was smoking a cigarette, and that was his tour manager and office manager, Barry Harvey. And he just struck up a conversation with me. And I'm from Iowa, small town like Gord was from Aurelia. And, knowing them now, they talk to people, all the band, like on the streets during the day, and they will invite different people to the show. So I was one of those lucky ones. And Barry Harvey invited me. He goes, would you like to come see the show? And I go, come backstage after the show. And I says, well, sure, I'd love to. And so he says, okay, I'll have some passes. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to invite my brother because I'm just going to not be greedy. I'll just ask for another, backstage pass, and I'll take my girlfriend. So my brother was left in the dust like he left me in the dust in 1987. So 1993. So we got to meet Gordon, me and my girlfriend, and the band. And somehow, I don't know, because I was backstage, and we all just chatted up. I met Gordon briefly, I'm just another fan in the, in the crowd. And then all the band, we struck up conversations with each one of them. And I think it was Michael that said, hey, we're going to play in Ramona Bowl tomorrow night. He says, would you want to come? And so got me 2 tickets, and Alexandra and myself, we went, had a blast. And then year after year, I got to know them a little more, and I would buy the first ticket for the first night, and they treat me to the second night. And it's like Gordon's music is addictive, and I see a lot of people the same way. They don't just go to one concert. You almost have to go to one more. And I was one of those people that felt like that. And so then years, oh my gosh. So I would go year after year, and they like Gordon, and I think the band too, they like familiarity backstage. I think it kind of made Gordon feel safe. Am I right or wrong? And they would always bring in another new person or a few people, but you'd see familiar faces. And so I met all their family, their wives, girlfriends, whatever. And then Michael, me and my girlfriend got to know him really well. And he was a single one for a while. Then one year, Michael called me on the phone, and he said, why aren't you here? Because he didn't see they played in the Canyon Club. He says, why aren't you here? And I was kind of like low on money at that time, or I was maybe depressed, who knows? And he says, well, I don't know, I'm just whatever. And he says, you got to be here. Gord just came out of the hospital. This is the first time we've been in California. You get over here. And so I knew better, right? And so I got in the car, and I was very happy to go, excited to see all of them. I actually loved all of them by that time. We're all good friends, kind of. I felt like that. I'm still just a fan, but I liked each of them. And so then great performance, said goodbye. Great to see Gordon. What a thrill, right? Miracle that he was up there. Amazing. And so let's see, that was, after his aneurysm, 2005 or 6 that you played, 5 probably that you played the Canyon Club. 5 or late 5, but after his aneurysm. Yeah, so then in 2000 and shortly after that, not too long after that, they played again. And I don't know. See, I'm getting a little mixed up. But there came a point where I did read on the internet that Gord was kind of alone. And so it's single. I thought he was single, actually. And so I flirted, and he flirted back, and he asked me to go to San Diego. He just came to the bar, and he said, are you coming tomorrow night? And we never had that kind of anything. Me and the band always talked, but he said, are you coming tomorrow night? And I think the guys knew that, and Rick had said, two of them, maybe Terry and Rick said, we'll get you a ticket. Well, I was cat sitting for my brother, and I'm very irresponsible, and it was a 2.5-hour drive to San Diego. And so I says, maybe, you guys, and I ended up not going. I regretted it, right? But I didn't go. And then shortly after, they came again, and flirted some more. Nothing came, just flirt. And fan like lots of other people are. And then somehow, we just started connecting more, and he started calling me. And at first, I didn't think he was pursuing me, and something he said, I won't say, made me realize maybe the little insecure part they're saying. It's kind of funny, but I'm not going to share it today. And so then I knew he wasn't calling me just to be a friend. He was calling me to pursue me. So I was very thrilled and excited, and it was a very long courtship because he was, very family-orientated, and I had never been married. And so we dated for close to 7 years, but I thought at my age that I would date someone a year and then, either marry or don't marry, but that didn't happen. And so dated him, and then, we got married. And I moved to Canada, and that's my story.
I kept Kim in the loop for a number of years. It was just great backstage to have someone like her. She had a smile that would light up a whole room, or she still does. Yeah, and so it was worth it to break up our monotony and have a nice looking chick come and hang out. And it didn't hurt that she had a great personality as well. So we became pretty good friends.
I'll say, they're like Gord, he told me when I first, we were getting very serious, he says, you'll only come on the road with me sometimes. He says, so, just be warned. And, but he says that's not true, but that's what he told me at the time. But I ended up going on tour, and I couldn't just sit there, and so I started helping everybody. And they helped me so much, each one of them, and we're just like a family, and I just love them, each one differently and to pieces, and I travel with them all the time, so they didn't get rid of me, and they could have. So that's it.
Well, Ronnie always said that Gordon walked the cradle when he got you.
He'd also say she's not as young as she looks. Wait, I do have to interject one thing. So they're saying, Gord was insecure, and everything. But something triggered me, because Ronnie would always say, when he was around Gordon, he would always brag about how Gordon was the big time, and, right? Yeah, so, I don't know. Gordon had multiple sides to him, right?
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah.
He was very secure in some things and very, very strong and manly, right? And then other things, he was very, very shy and passive, So it was dichotomy.
True.
Yeah. And Gord would say he's complicated, and the band would say he's complicated. And then finally, I looked at the band one time and said, he's complicated.
It got so we didn't know which Gord was going to show up at the plane in the morning, But that was great. How many years did you actually travel with us?
Well, I did a little bit with you guys when I was dating him.
Yeah.
But just I would hop on a few shows, not very many, right? And then when I married in 2014 or 2015, because we married in December.
Yeah. You were actually an employee as well, right?
Yeah, but not officially, but yes.
She changed the oil in the jet.
And Rick's not here, but boy, Rick told me something soon after I got married because he saw me working and everything, and I don't remember the story, but it was funny. Something about just, cross your legs and just, enjoy yourselves. Don't be helping doing anything. But once you start doing something, then it becomes your husband expects it out of you. I got some jobs, but I loved every minute of it. So. Thank you, everybody. Love each of you, too.
Kim, I got to say you are a treasure, and I know you traveled with him all the time, and wow, and it was an honor for me to meet you, and you guys too. Well, we're going to wrap this up. I want to remind everybody that who has participated today, the panel and everything, we're going to do a group photo shop, so please don't leave until we finish. And last up is Steve again to do a final song. Again, guys, thank you so much. And Gordon Lightfoot's memory will live on and on and on.
Well, what a fantastic evening. Hey? Boy, oh boy. I feel so touched by all this. It's just, thank you very much for all of you coming. And I'd like to end with a lovely song. And I have a couple of boater friends that are actually right in front of me. And so I love boating, and I know Gord loved boating. And I'd like to sing this beautiful song. I'm sailing down a summer wind. I got whiskers on my chin, and I like the mood I'm in as I while away the time of day in the lee of Christian Island. Tall and strong, she dips and reels. I call her Silver Heels, and she tells me how she feels. She's a good old boat, and she'll stay afloat through the toughest gale and keep smiling. But for one more day she would like to stay in the lee of Christian Island. I'm sailing down a summer day where the fish and seagulls play. I put my troubles all away, and when the gale comes up, I'll fill my cup with the whiskey of the Highlands. She's a good old ship, and she'll make the trip from the lee of Christian Island. Let's get into a Gord spirit here. We sing along with me, or hum along. Ooh, 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 slips along. I sing for her a song as she leans wings into the wind. She's a good old boat and she'll stay afloat through the toughest gale. Keep smiling. Oh, when the summer ends, we will rest again in the lee of Christian Island. When the summer ends, we will rest again in the lee of Christian Island. Thank you all. God bless all our visitors tonight and guests. It was a very touching evening. Thank you very much. Have a great night and come and join us tomorrow.